Hey everybody, Quantum here, and in this video I have something pretty exciting. It is something that has been popping up more and more that we've seen in testing, and that is a new variation of Sapphire Steel. I'm just calling it Sapphire Steel Combo for now, but it is a pretty exciting deck, and I think it will be something that is meta viable. Of course, different iterations and things will evolve over time, but we're going to go ahead and break this list down. As you can tell, it is heavy on the Steel side, not so much on the Sapphire side, and that is because we're not using a lot or any really ramp. Instead, we're using Sapphire for a couple of unique cards and I guess you can say archetype specific functions that work well with Steel. The deck is fairly accessible, only 15 uninkables and 45 inkable cards, and a good spread of a multitude of different kind of card types as well. On the cost curve, we've got a lot of things from 1 to 6, and it's a total of 60 cards, 40 of which are characters. So when you take a look at this list, what might jump out at you right away is this looks a little bit more like an aggro list, but then it doesn't really make sense because you got a lot of 5 cost cards up here, you're going into 6 cost cards. What exactly is this deck aiming to do? Well, you can think of it as a mid-range deck. You're not playing too many 1-cost characters, you're just playing Mickey Mouse, and the main reason for this is because, yeah, it has resist, it's a character you can develop, and it can just get you a little bit of lore, progress your game state. Mainly, your 1-cost cards are going to be your traditional 8 items, Fortisphere and Popsicle, so that you can use them with the Hiram draw engine later on. The Hiram draw engine continues to be one of the best draw engines in the game, so just like Beast Tragic Hero and Diablo. On the 2-cost and 3-cost curve, though, this is where you start to develop your game plan. We've already talked about Calhoun in something like Amethyst Steel and how good this card can be. In this deck, it continues to be an absolute powerhouse because not only does it have resist 1, obviously, and being able to banish like upwards on the curve, so you can even take out like 3-cost cards, etc. with a 2-cost card, it's gaining you lore in the process. But what's even more unique is when you pair it with something like the Cogsworth, giving resist +1 to all of your characters as well. And in my build, not that it's meta or anything, but I just wanted to test out Mouse Armor as well. You can make this Calhoun be an absolute force where she basically takes like no damage and she's constantly outing threats on the board. It is by far a quintessential aggro checker for a deck like this. Like, your aggro opponents aren't getting over a card like this, and you're going to keep up with their lore gain, similar to what Robin Hood, Champion of Sherwood, did in previous sets. Mr. Smee just continues to be the best 2-drop in the game, so that's why we're playing him, and of course he still synergizes very well with the Cogsworth, giving resist +1 to prevent the end of turn damage. The card that, in my opinion, this deck is actually built around is this new Alice, Savvy Sailor. Love Alice in Wonderland, by the way, guys. If you've watched my channel before, I know I've mentioned that. But this card, I think, is going to be really, really impactful. It is a 3-cost uninkable 1/4 that quests for 2, and it has ward. And it has a really nice ability that says whenever this character quests, another chosen character of yours gets +1 lore and gains ward until the start of your next turn. There are a lot of potential possibilities with a card like this, which is really nice, and this particular deck will focus on these interactions, but obviously this can branch out even further. Maybe we'll explore this card in like a separate take, but this is going to be a card I think that can potentially do a lot of work in this metagame and future metagames. What immediately comes to mind is, well, you have this Alice on board, and if you have a Hiram as well, your Hiram is now going to quest for 2, and it has ward, meaning your opponent can't small Sisu target it and banish it very easily, brawl it away, etc. And your Hiram was questing for 2. That is huge, right? That gives your Hiram much more value. But in addition to that, you can combo with something like this, which is what you can look at as maybe one of your aggro pushes. Mr. Big Shrewd Tycoon. This is a 4-cost uninkable 1/1 that says this character can't be challenged by characters with 2 strength or greater. If you give the Alice ability to a card like Mr. Big, he'll quest for 4, he'll have ward, and then if you also have like a Cogsworth or a Mouse Armor to give him resist +1, nothing can take this out, right? Like, they have to do a board wipe. They have to do something like a Sisu, Big Sisu, or they have to do like a Be Prepared in order to wipe out this character. Otherwise, he's going to be completely protected. He can't be challenged with anything with 2 strength or more. So the resist +1 mitigates the 1 strength character that your opponent is throwing into him that would take him out, and he has ward. So he can't be, again, small C-suit brawled. He can't be targeted by anything to out him, right? It's a very, very interesting interaction that you can potentially set up with, like, I guess you can call it like a lock combo, where this thing will basically just quest for at least 7, 8 or more if your opponent doesn't have a direct answer to it, right? So very interesting interaction. This Alice, you can already see giving Hiram, giving Mr. Big, different kind of scenarios. Very unique I guess, interactions with these cards. And then on top of that, because you are on Steel and Sapphire, you have a lot of willpower that at your disposal that, can take damage. Something like a Baymax could work very well with this. The Alice, again, protecting this from Brawl, protecting it from Ice Block Sisu, giving this the ability to quest for 3, while this thing is also able to consistently heal up your cards and, just continue to quest for a lot, right? Heal up your cards and quest for a lot, but also gain lore for when it removes damage, right? When you play this character, whenever you quest, you may remove up to 2 damage from another chosen character of yours, gain 1 lore for each damage removed this way. So potentially very interesting interactions on the top end here once you get this Alice in play and start questing. Now, of course, she's not invincible. Once she's exerted, you can challenge her and just stop that air quotes lock. I'm calling it a lock because giving everything ward is crazy, or giving a certain character ward is really, really powerful. But this is the way, like, honestly, like, ward is such, like, we've seen it, right? We saw it last set. Ward is not an ability that's really good for the game, at least in the way that it's been designed in the past with like the Muses and Prince John and Bucky, because they're just basically items. They just sit on board and you can't do anything with them. They're even worse than items because you have to basically do some kind of character board wipe, which is very expensive, in order to get them off the field. A card like this forces you to turn it sideways, making it vulnerable to challenging if you want to take it out. So it mitigates some of the broken aspects of ward, which I think is really good. I'm just a fan of ward being conceptualized in this way. That being said, of course, as people do, they'll find ways to mitigate that or work around it, and one of the ways is obviously playing Cogsworth, giving it resist +1, making it harder for it to be challenged and outed, and then of course playing something like a Bodyguard, a Chenpo, which in and of itself can take the ward ability on the Alice. Like, imagine you quest with Alice and then you have the Chenpo, even if you play it exerted. Like, I remember I played somebody and they could have won the game, but they misplayed. They had an Alice and they had I forget what else they had on board. I think it was a Hiram, and they quested with the Alice, gave the Hiram ward and +1 lore, quested with the Hiram, banished the item, draw 2 cards, and then they played a Chenpo, and they had the Chenpo in their hand. They didn't draw into it with the Hiram, because they played it and then took it back before they drew with the Hiram. If they would have played the Chenpo and then quested with the Alice and gave the Chenpo ward, the +1 lore doesn't matter, but giving the Chenpo ward would have made it so I couldn't double ice block it down, and then I've shifted Big Sisu to wipe the board, because that's what I did the next turn against this opponent. And if they would have had this Chenpo protected, I think they were like very close to winning the game. They were like at 18 lore or something. The Chenpo would have been able to quest again, because challenging it with a Sisu would have only done 5 damage, so the Chenpo would have survived, and they probably had something to like lock up the game the following turn anyways. So like, the sequencing can matter here, where what you would want to do in a scenario like that is protect your Chenpo by giving it ward so that it couldn't be targeted. So you can like play the Chenpo even if you've like played it in Bodyguard mode, or even if it's already on board and you quest it, to exert it. But you can have Alice quest, give the Chenpo ward, and then they can't touch the Chenpo. They have to challenge into it, right? And then in order to get to the Alice, they have to get through the Chenpo, because they both have ward now. So there's like a couple of cool interactions you can do with Bodyguards here. And again, you can just see how much application a card like this Alice can have. So I'm really psyched to see, it can be good in like certain variations of like Ruby Sapphire, etc. I think this Alice, not necessarily a build around card, although it kind of is, but it's not going to be used in the ways in decks that have been built traditionally in previous formats. Like, you're not putting this into a traditional Tamatoa Lucky Dime Sapphire Steel deck, or at least I don't think you would. You could, but I think it functions nicely in a deck like this, where you can see there's multiple ways you can get massive benefits off of a card like this. I'm opting to test the Gontu because, again, this is more of an aggressive deck. So a 5 cost 4/3 that quests for 4. Again, if you have Alice, give it ward, protect it so that it can quest the next turn, even though it wouldn't get the lore. Like, let's say you play the Gontu, then you quest with Alice to give this ward. You don't care about losing the extra 1 lore off the Alice because it's protected for the following turn, then you quest for 4 on the next turn, right? So again, there's a couple of interesting interactions you can use there. And then of course Tinkerbell. Not that you'd really want to use it on the Tinkerbell, because you're likely throwing this thing into characters, which again synergizes well with the Baymax, because you throw Tinkerbell into something, take the damage, play Baymax, heal it up, gain lore for that. Like, a lot of nice synergy with the way that this deck is built. And then, you know, just closing things out, a couple of removal options just because you want ways to deal with like Diablos and stuff. So Baboom, Strength, Zeus. Yeah, I guess you could play some of like the Steel, you know, this gets evasive during your turn kind of thing, but doesn't really fit the theme of this deck, I don't think. So because again, you have Ward to protect for the most part. And then just a standard item package. I wanted to play more than just the 8 items for Hero, so I opted to put in 2 mouse armor just to beef up things like the Alice, like the Mr. Big. And this combination has worked for me. I played 4 matches with this deck and I won 3, being on the play. Well, I was on the play 3 times, but I did lose one that I was on the play 4, just because I didn't draw very well, and I won the game that I went second. So, yeah, an interesting deck. Let me know, again, if you want me to maybe do some CPU simulations. I will eventually get around to playing, like, actual matches that I can show you guys with people. So hopefully we get to that soon, but let me know what you think in the comment section below if you made it this far. Thank you again for watching. Quantum is out.